Hello and welcome to the Philippines. This video is about ferries, buses, and trip costs. Many of you know that I took a recent trip from Cebu City to Bacolod City to Iloilo City and then back again using buses and ferries, taxis and tricycles in the cities, and I'm going to include a breakdown of my costs for all those items, including the food, the hotel costs. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I could have saved a fair amount of money. Of course, we can always figure out how to spend more money. It's not difficult to spend more money. I could have spent a lot more on food. I could have spent a lot more on hotels, and for that matter, probably transportation. I may have been able to fly cheaper than what all my bus and ferries cost, as a matter of fact. But there is so much to see on the ground that you cannot see and experience from up in the air that I chose to go the long route. In the last 2 weeks, I've done several videos on my trip from Cebu City to Bacolod. Exploring Bacolod for a couple of days, taking ferry to Iloilo, spending some time exploring Iloilo City. And so the videos that I will be showing here start this ferry. We're getting on it in Iloilo City, and we will be going over to Bacolod, then getting on a bus that will take us across Negros Island over to San Carlos. The bus and the passengers will get on a ferry, take us over to Toledo City on Cebu Island, and that same bus will get off, and we will board the same bus, and it will take us to Cebu City. And this part of the journey took just about exactly 10 hours. Many ferries offer 2 or more types of accommodations. This is the non-air conditioned economy class, basically, and can get a little tight. The seats are fairly tight in there, and sometimes there's space up front. You can put your luggage, or you tuck it down between your legs. This was an hour flight from Iloilo to Bacolod City, and the cost was 295 pesos, which is $5.90 US cents. In some cities, you can buy your tickets at a travel agency or a company ticket agents, and it's often more convenient to do that ahead of time. You don't have to stand in line at the terminals. Now, my experience on this trip, I didn't have to stand in line more than a couple of minutes to buy my tickets. But sometimes you might get to a terminal, if it's busy on a weekend or holiday, you might get to a terminal and the next boat going out, ferry going out, might be full. And because you didn't buy it early, you may have to wait for the next ferry. So keep that in mind and try to plan ahead. Several ferries have a tourist class and a business class, and they're often air conditioned with probably a little bit better seating. You have this non-air conditioned area on some ferries that have double bunk beds all the way across. In fact, this ship had 2 levels of these. I paid for tourist class on my way over to Iloilo, coming from I think Toledo City to San Carlos, and this is completely different. The tourist class there had quite comfortable chairs, lots of leg room. In this case, the tourist class has bunks, double bunks, and air-conditioned area instead of the open air area. So every ferry is a bit different. My tourist class ticket cost me $3.20 instead of the $2.75, I believe, in the last ferry I was on. Not that much difference, really. Here we are getting off the fast ferry in Bacolod. We came over 1 hour from Iloilo to Bacolod City, and I'll show you a map later with the details of the trips. But anyway, the first day of my trip from Cebu City over to Bacolod City, where I spent a couple days, the travel that first day cost me almost exactly 1,000 pesos, or 20 US dollars. And here's a look inside the air-conditioned part of that ferry. Each one is laid out a little bit differently. The seats look more comfortable than some I've ridden in. I spent 2 days in Bacolod City, and my hotels there, stayed in 2 different hotels. They end up costing me a total of $48, or about 2,400 pesos. My food during those 2 days in Bacolod ended up being about $18.40 US cents, or about 920 pesos. I could have eaten for less, obviously. My 2 days food and hotel in Bacolod City, 3,320 pesos, or $66. If you are in the Philippines for very long at all, there's a good chance that you will be traveling by some sort of ferry. And here we came into Bacolod, and we're getting a bus ticket that will include a ferry ticket from Bacolod all the way over to Cebu City. And we're going to get on a bus that will take us to a ferry. The bus will get on the ferry, and then we'll all get off the ferry and jump back on the bus. Anyway, they have schedules running fairly regularly, and you might have to wait an hour or two, but the prices there, the 580 includes 190 for the ferry ride that the bus and the passenger takes over as well. Keep in mind that the Coast Guard will shut the ferries down when the storms get up. The typhoons come through, and they've done it twice in December 2019. I stayed in Iloilo, which I'm glad I did, a couple extra days, but it affected my plans to go over to Guimaras Island. The wind and the rain just would not make for a good visit to that island, so I stayed in Iloilo City and made good use of my time there. Anyway, mostly Sirius buses here in Bacolod City at this particular bus stop. I think this is the south bus terminal. They've got a north bus terminal, I think, where a number of different bus companies go into. I took a taxi from the ferry terminal on up here. I think it cost me about 100 pesos, I think, 140 maybe, less than $3. My experience also in the Philippines, unless you're in some remote area, the minute you get out of a cab, the minute you get out of a bus, the minute you get off of a ferry, there's almost always somebody or a group of people offering you transportation, offering to help you, to be your guide. So be ready for that as soon as you set foot on land, out of a bus or ferry or taxi. There are people. Guy grabbed my bag as I came out of the bus, tried to grab it, and he was going to put me right on this bus, not understanding that I had to go to the ticket counter that I just showed you, many buses away, to buy the ticket first. And there again, they give you a assigned seat when you're there at the terminal. Now, the people we pick up on the way, they don't get assigned seats. They just take what empty seat is available. This was actually a pretty comfortable seat and pretty comfortable bus. They didn't have the noise real loud, which was nice. This trip was 9 days and 8 nights, so I spent 8 nights in hotel rooms. And kind of mid-range price-wise. I could have spent a lot more. I could have probably spent about half as much if I would have planned my trip better, if that was my goal, was to save money. So you can do it a lot cheaper. Anyway, just getting into the hotels, my hotels end up costing me, for 8 nights, about $240 US dollars, and that is 12,000 pesos. 240 US dollars divided by 8, $30 a day, or 1,500 pesos a day. Now, my opinion about hotels is that you can probably spend just a little bit more if you do your research, just a little bit more, and you get a lot more for that little bit extra. If you're on a real tight budget, of course, you can find find places for under 1,000 pesos a day. If not online, walking up and down the street looking for those cheaper places. Beautiful sights going across the island of Negros from Bacolod City up over the mountains and over to San Carlos. And there the bus drops you off at the San Carlos port. The bus is going to get on the roll-on, roll-off ferry, the Ro-Ro ferry, and you're going to get on it. And that 580 peso fee included 190 pesos. In fact, he gave us a slip to give when we checked in on the boat, to give to the people on the boats, showing that we had paid for that ticket. And we're going to get on a light ferry. They're one of the big companies down in the Visayas, I guess. They don't, I think they've got some fast craft, but most of theirs are a slow boat that will get you there. And it didn't take very long. It wasn't that long of a trip over to Toledo, actually. I'm thinking an hour, but it may have been an hour and a half, maybe hour and a half or so. I think a little bit longer, perhaps. My food on this trip for the 9 days. Actually, the first day I pretty much lived on a couple of granola bars, breakfast bars, because the buses and ferries did not stop. There was no time to stop to eat any place. So I did eat at one McDonald's. And the last day coming over too, everything was pretty rushed, and we did not slow down. We did not take a lunch break, so I didn't eat very much that last day. But I spent about $117 or $13 a day for food. 5,850 pesos for those 9 days. So 5,850 pesos divided by 8 days instead of 9, because I barely ate during those travel days. I could have even divided by 7, I guess. But divided by 8 days is 731 pesos a day. Divided by 50 pesos to the US dollar is about $14.60 per day for food. And here on these ferries, you're assigned either a seat number or you're assigned a bunk number. And so I had a bunk number a couple over on the lower, and most of them were open, so you couldn't move around after that. They did come by and check your tickets to make sure you were in the right spot, I guess. After they check, then you can move around a bit if you want. And we had real calm seas during this voyage over to Iloilo City on Cebu Island. And I spent a lot of my time just hanging out over the edges, taking some video, enjoying the views. Even saw a few dolphins, but they were too fast for me. I did not have time to film them. I had my camera ready, but they were up and back in the water just that fast. Ladies and children first. Oh. We ride about 100 feet, if that. Get back off. Heel drive forward.
For quarantine.
Oh, quarantine. Yes. It is.
Oh, you're good.
Thank you.
Oh, welcome.
It's cold in the bus.
Yes.
Very cold in the bus.
The bus is waiting for City Mercado.
Oh, okay.
Just wait outside.
And
This is yours?
yes, okay, thank you. Is this the disinfectant? So that is the disinfectant to help kill any of the African swine fever virus, whatever it is, that is spreading throughout Asia. Millions and millions of pigs have been killed in China and a number of other countries. It was first caught up in Luzon, and they were trying to contain it there, and it's even spread into different areas of Cebu Island, other islands. So that is an attempt to try to slow down the spread of that disease that's killing so many swine. And that disease does not harm humans, is what we hear, but it kills lots of pigs. So they are proactive when they find pigs that are infected. They kill them and bury them or burn them, whatever they do. There's one other cost item I didn't go over yet, and that is my transportation. Taxis and tricycles and the buses, the ferries, for the 9 days added up to about 65 US dollars, or 3,285 pesos. So there you have the transportation, hotels, and food. My total for those 9 days, believe, came to 21,135 pesos, or 2,348 pesos a day. US dollars, that's $422. Divided by 9 days, $47 a day. Some of these construction zones got more than a little tight, but glad they're doing some widening in certain areas, at least where they are able to. Now, if I was on a real tight budget, I probably could have reduced my hotel costs by at least half, probably $15 a day instead of $30 a day. And I probably could have reduced my food costs by at least half. And but I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to eat at that level. And this trip took me just about exactly 10 hours from the time I left my hotel in the morning at about 7 a.m. Got on a ferry almost right away at 7:30. In fact, it came in late. It was running late. At 7:40 we got on the ferry, I think. By the time I got home, it was about 5:40 in the evening by the time I took the taxi from the bus terminal there in Cebu City. When I went originally from Cebu City, it was about 10 hours to Bacolod City, and that's because I took the long route up around the north end of Negros on a bus there, just by chance. I didn't realize I got on a bus that was going that direction, but I'm glad I did. I saw a lot of territory, a lot of towns and cities up that way that I never would have got a glimpse of, had any clue about, if we had not gone that way. And of course, a person could spend a lot more than that if they want to be very comfortable in the hotels, eat at the better restaurants. A person that's very frugal and wants to get by on less, you could probably spend half what I did. Instead of 420, maybe 200 and 210, something like that. Anyway, I'll show you a quick map of the route. Right, here's a map of my route going, and my route coming back was a little bit different, but I took a bus from the South Bus Terminal here in Cebu City, and we came down here and across over here, and this is where I got on a ferry in Toledo City, and the ferry took me across over here. And I asked somebody on the ferry, where's the bus terminal? And he asked me where I was going. I told him Bacolod. He said, you don't need to go to the bus terminal. There are 2 buses on the ferry already that came from Cebu. So I could have gotten on a bus at the South Bus Terminal that was going to go all the way to Bacolod. Didn't know that at the time. Anyway, when I got off the ferry, I jumped on one of the buses, paid, I think, 290 pesos, and I thought that bus was going to go across the mountains here straight over to Bacolod, but they didn't. As we were going along here and I kept seeing beaches and signs for resorts, I understood that that we weren't going over the mountains, and I pulled my maps up. I use an app called maps.me, the letters ME, and I download the maps, so I don't need to have a data connection to view maps, and it showed we were going up around this way. And this trip took 10 hours that first day, Now, coming back from Iloilo, we did go all the way straight across here, and it took 10 hours all the way over back to Cebu City. So I'm glad we came up this way, because there are a number of cities and towns up this way that I would have never known anything about if I had not stayed awake and watched the sights. So now I have a little bit of an idea of what's up that way. So then coming back, starting at Iloilo port there, terminals, and see if I can do this. I think it would work. It worked. Maybe not. Maybe not. No. See, when I did it, until I turned on, I use an app called Snagit by TechSmith to do the recording here. And if I'm using Google Maps, I can just grab onto a point here and I can drag it and move the route around. But since I'm recording, guess it's not going to let me do that. Well, it is. All right. All right. Look at that. Look at that. I just changed the route. All right. And I am not walking. I did not walk the 37 hours, 220 kilometers. But using Google Maps, you can put in automobile, you can put in bus, you can put in walking. But the problem with that is the only way I could get it to give me multiple destinations, over here to Bacolod first and then on to Iloilo, the only way I could get it to do that was to plug in walking. So that just gives you an idea of the route that we took. And coming back, 10 hours was the complete route coming back. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Safe travels to you all wherever you're at, and we'll see you next time.